Guys, it's being mean. It is being so mean right now. Adjustments. Can I go? No, I don't think that's where. No, that's not what I want. Um. I changed one setting. One setting and everything went to hell. Well, it's not even on. What? Where did it go? It's not even open. Okay, please let me change it. I just want to change it from 60 to 30, please. Ugh. Awful. Alright, well, you guys get to suffer with choppiness today, because that's what the app has decided we are doing. I shall teleport every now and then, I guess, because that's how this is going to work. But yes, this is for the otter. We've got, you can see him over here in the corner. Come here. He's still taped to the Ed head so he doesn't fall over because he's front heavy right now. We've got a lot of his hair tufts on. But he has no back to his head, so he's very front heavy at the moment, which is why he's duct taped on, because that keeps him from slipping and sliding until the rest of his fur is on. Once when all of his other fur is on, he'll sit much more nicely and won't slump on the Ed head. It doesn't help that the Ed head's plastic and also very slippery, but what are you gonna do? We are suffering today. Today is not a good day for the stream. But that's okay. I'll have to fiddle with settings and stuff afterwards. And then hopefully we can exist. And it won't be so bad. For now, I just gotta figure out who's doing what and where and why. I have to sew this fur here. And then it should go like that. There we go. We are trying our besticles today. Our besticles are not great. Our Wi-Fi is not happy. But that's okay. Some days it just be like that. Is he now? We are live. We've been live. Oh, Streamlabs. I need to actually... Because I guarantee you... exist. So now I'm just gonna sew these pieces together, and then we'll hopefully have all of the fur for our head and neck sewn on sometime today. I don't know if we're going to get them done before the end of stream, considering how stream is deciding to be today. It is what it is. The app that is supposed to be streaming my camera right now isn't even showing up on my computer. And yet somehow it is streaming me. So I'm not really sure how that works, how an app that's not open is running. It's not exactly one of those apps that runs in the background like that. It's not how that one works. Honestly, my computer might just be having a time today. But we will live. We will live and we will persevere and we will suffer through what is my crappy Wi-Fi right now. And whatever my computer is also doing. It's okay, we can do it. We can survive. We'll make it. We might have to turn on the air conditioning though, because oh my god. It is hot. This honestly is not the most boring part in all of this. The most boring part in all of this is actually sewing the lining to the lining and the head to the head. And then sewing the lining to the head. Because sewing this outer edge here on the neck lining takes forever. But then it looks so pretty at the end. But that's future me's problem, because we have to get all of this on first. Upside, sewing all of this on should be easier solely because of the zipper. A lot of times the problem I have with stitching on head and necks is that as you get around the outer edge, you can't straight stitch anymore, you have to ladder stitch, and I hate ladder stitching. It's good if you have to do it, but I'd rather not if I can avoid it. Hello, baby mans, how are you doing? Yeah, hi. Hello. No. No, sir. No. You were just out there. Go ask your dad. Go ask your dad. Go ask him. Hold on. The dogs apparently really have to pee. We're struggle busing today, guys. We are really struggle busing. I will be right back. Alright. I'm back. We exist. I have some candy corn. I don't know what he wants. Snackies. Only a little bit of snackies, though. I did not grab a lot of them. I'm hoping, I think, mayhaps, maybes, tomorrow we might play Repo on stream. I don't know if I'm actually going to play Repo on stream because I don't know if my computer can handle that. But we'll find out. I know it could handle a solo playthrough. I don't know if it could handle doing Repo and also OBS with multiple people if I'm hosting. Which does mean we might need somebody else to host. But that's okay. We'll figure it out. Either I'll do a solo on stream, or we might get other people's. I just want to see if my stream can take it, you know? My stream's not masochist, but it just wants to know if it can handle it. Oh, come on. There we go. My computer is not made for this in the slightest. It wasn't made for running art programs, even. It was made for barely running Word, and we have since upgraded it a lot to get it to run art programs. But the unfortunate thing is it's not made for gaming or streaming, much less both at once. So getting it to run a lot of newer games, even with just some decent graphics and not high-end graphics, is hard. I mean, I do this for fun, you know? Like, I don't have to stream. And the choppiness is not my computer's fault. I want to point out, it is the app that is on my computer that is currently being an asshole. Not my computer itself, otherwise the stream would be running fine. But it works for what I need it to do, and I don't exactly have $800 to drop on a new laptop. Because I can't get a permanent PC set up. I don't have the space for that, unfortunately. I have nowhere to permanently put a computer. Otherwise, I would. If I had the money, I would also already be doing other games and some fun outdoors streaming. But I do not, so. Because I would like to do some, I think it'd be very fun to get some GoPros. Eventually, when Twitch starts making me some money, which I don't think it's ever going to do, but if it does, if we start getting a lot of subs, whether they're gift subs or Twitch Prime or whatever, if we start getting enough subs to make enough money, I will happily buy GoPros and harnesses to stick on the dogs and let them run around in the backyard, and you guys can have Bingus and Bongus cams of the dogs as they run around outside doing dog things, because I think that would be fun to watch Bingus and Baby Mans running around. Especially Baby Mans, because oh my god, does he skedaddle. He runs. I don't know that he'd be too happy about having a GoPro strapped to him, though. I think he might be a little awkward about it at first, but he would be very excited about going outside, so I don't think it would slow him down in the slightest. The other part I worry about is that he does frequently go head over heels because he is not good at staying on his feet. He crashes a lot, so I think he would land on the GoPro, which may or may not go well. But that's okay. I think that would be a fun thing to do in the future, eventually. But like I said, I don't have the money for that. Maybe someday. Someday in the future. Someday after I have the money for a... oh, what's it called? Card. a capture card because I would like to stream games from my PlayStation. I have a lot of old PS2 games that I'd like to play for streams in particular. And I would also like to get a camera that isn't my phone for streaming at some point. That would make life a lot easier because we wouldn't have this issue. It would just be camera and not my phone hooked up to an app that's on my computer streaming, and then that app recently decided to do an update, so now it sucks. And we're getting ultra choppiness again for stupid reasons. I don't know, guys. Don't ask me. I don't know why it does half the things it does. It just is what it is. It's one of those apps that's like, oh, it's free, but we would really, really, really like it if you paid for our platinum plan. And I'm like, no, never. Not in a million years. I will buy a webcam before I pay for that. In fact, I have a webcam. That's the sad thing. I do, in fact, have a very shitty webcam that I could plug into this computer right now. It says it's 1040, but oh my god, it's the worst quality I've ever seen in my life. It's not 1040. Whereas my phone can do up to 4K. Will Twitch allow 4K? Not currently. Not for me, at least. But that's okay. Eventually. Either way, I'm getting much better camera quality with my phone's camera than with my little camcorder I bought like 3 years ago when I first started streaming, so it is what it is. I have fur everywhere. That is also another downside to a lot of the short furs. They shed like fucking crazy. Like, there is not a single day where I am not inhaling fur, whether it be from that one or, oh hi, you're closer than I thought. Hello. I totally just whacked him in the face. Oh, the baby. The baby. Don't lick me. Yeah, hi, the baby. Alright, go be a baby somewhere. Yeah, go. Yeah, I know. Go be a baby somewhere. I'll cuddle with you in a bit. He acts like we didn't just spend all morning cuddling and playing and doing all kinds of doggy stuff. Because I woke up early this morning. I woke up early this morning to go get my windshield fixed because someone kicked up a rock, which put a crack in my windshield. Luckily, it was an easy fix, so yay. Yeah, I know. God forbid, half an hour? Hour? Not even. Half an hour ago was so long ago. He's just a big baby. He's a big old baby. The biggest of babies, even. I did do this right? Yeah. Yeah. It's difficult. Don't mind me. This should be fine. Does it look fine at the moment? No. Is it fine? Yes. We're all struggling. A lot of this is very big braining brain stuff. And my brain don't like it. In fact, my brain is very upset at all the things that I do. Because, like, I know that somehow this will work, despite the lining being over here and this side being over here. It's a whole thing. This will work. I promise. I'm promising myself more than I'm promising you guys, but I promise it'll work. My computer's fans are going so hard it sounds like it's about to take off from the desktop. I feel like there's gotta be other stuff running in the background on my computer at the moment, which I'm not happy about, but I wouldn't be surprised about either. This song weirds me out every time. With that one spot. There we go. Fun story for you guys, since I'm just sitting here sewing and I don't have any interesting commentary on sewing. Walmart magically decided at 6 a.m. yesterday to sign me up for Walmart Plus. I was not awake. Nobody else has access to my accounts because it's only logged in on my phone, and as far as I'm aware, I'm the only one with access to that because it was on my nightstand, and I don't have any TeamViewer apps or anything like that on my phone. But that's besides the point. I wake up to an email that's like, welcome to Walmart Plus. You started your free trial. I'm like, did I? Did I start my free trial? Because I did not fucking ask for the free trial. And then I called, and they're like, oh, well, you had to have started it. It had to have been you. I was like, no. I don't sign up for free trials. And I'm like, am I going to be charged? Like, well, yeah, once when your free trial's up, they're going to charge your card. And I'm like, you better not fucking charge me. Because I didn't sign up for any of this shit. So I'm on the app, and I'm trying to figure out for the life of me how to cancel this shit. Because I don't want to pay for it, you know? I don't want to forget later on and then end up paying money I don't have because I cannot afford this towards Walmart Plus. And there is no way for me to cancel my free trial. Where it's supposed to tell you that you can cancel, straight up does not exist. So I will be livid if my free trial ends and they decide to charge me. But for now, we're getting our groceries delivered today. Because if they're gonna give me something that I didn't fucking ask for, I'm going to use it, I guess. Why not? But yeah, so that was an interesting phone call yesterday. And then, of course, I had to get my windshield fixed, which was also not that cheap. Didn't really have money for that, but, you know, better to fix it now than wait and have the entire windshield spiderweb. So, that was a thing. Baby Mans has his egg. You can't see it, but he has his egg. There we go. You gonna show everybody your egg? No? Cool. Yeah. Can I help you, sir? Cool. He's just having one of those days. Alright. So now that we have all of our neck fur sewn, we can actually flip it So now all the neck fur is right side out, as is all of the lining fabric, to make life a lot easier, because now what I want to do is I actually want to tack down the lining fabric in certain spots. So like here, I actually want to put like a tack right here, and I want to tack on the seams in a few spots. Just because then that way it keeps the lining from being baggy and like flumpy. That's not a word, but that's the word I'm going to use because that's the best way I have to describe what I'm explaining to you guys. You know when stuff isn't attached, right? Like it's detached on the inside of the head. So then gravity wants to pull down all that extra fabric and then it's touching all over your face. We don't want that. We don't want that. We don't want extra touchiness on the inside of our heads. That's just too much touch, you know? That's sensory overload with cotton fabric. So, I'm not going to sew the shit out of this, but I am going to sew the fuck out of it. And I'm just going to, like this seam right here, we know where this seam goes. Goes in the square hole. And I'm just going to tack this corner right here where these meet up with a couple of small stitches. Because it's already held down all the way down the center on the back. Normally I do a stitch at the top, in the center, at the bottom. Not really at the bottom, because at the bottom it goes all the way around. But, and then I usually do a couple in the middle of the back of the head, because that's where there's a lot of bagginess. And this essentially divides the head lining into sections that are tacked down. So instead of just being one big piece of cotton on the back that'll whoosh, or on the top that'll go whoosh, we don't want that. So this kind of splits it up into a piece like this big, a piece like this big, and those are less floppy, flumpy. However we're describing this. Which is perfect, because then it's not being stupid. But I'm also not sitting here for 10 years stitching across the entirety of every single seam. Because that would take forever. And it doesn't really make that big of a difference in comparison to just doing these couple little stitches in these spots. But I do want to do a center tack on the front here, just to make sure that the fabric is where it's supposed to be, as far as the neck fabric goes. That just helps keep it centered on the fursuit head overall, rather than everybody being separate. Yeah, now we have this section, which will be sewn all along this edge, and that keeps that from being swoopy. Same thing with this one. And then we have the front, which has the pocket, and as of right now, this whole chunk swoopy. But to attach the corners, we're going to have a little attachment in the middle here, and that's going to be attached to the bottom. So it's actually not that big of a piece, and it's not going to go swoop a whole lot, which is nice. Here, I can actually show you better. It's not going to floop a lot, which we do actually. This was done off stream, like yesterday. We do have a neck pocket. It's fairly big, like slicker brush fits in there easily. So yeah, it's a decent amount of space in there, you know. Or let me see actually. Giant cone of thread fits in there. This is probably the most you could fit in there, is this giant cone of thread, because that's taking up most of that pouch. You could still fit a few small things, but this is probably the biggest you could go for something that will actually fit inside the pocket. Because it's about, let's see here, my hands are 5.5 at the middle fingers, so 11 wide and about 5.5 deep long, you know. So So it's a decent sized pocket. It'll fit your phone, it'll fit your wallet, your car keys, whatever you want to shove in there. I'm actually going to stick his tongues in there later so I don't lose them. That is one of the best benefits to pockets, is it's good at holding your extra shit. I love holding my extra shit. So now, I do just want to I gotta tie a knot first. Yeah. I'm gonna go right here and just tie a little extra knot right here, because this will keep the lining centered on this piece when we actually sew it to the head in a minute, which we do have to do. Like I said, I don't know how far we're actually going to get on that today, but you know, we'll find out, I suppose. And now we have our lined head and neck floof with our big old zipper. I put it in the right way this time, Luna. Luna is infamous as the first ever zipper I put in a head, which I did tell her I'd never done it before, but it's something that I figured I could do. And I did. I did install a zipper. Would you zip? Good lord. There we go. Don't know what that was about. It's probably because the fabric's all over the place at the moment. Once when it's all stitched down nicely, it won't be so stupid. Because right here at the bottom, all this fabric is still loose, which might be why it's catching. The thing is when I zipped it, you zipped from the bottom up, so this piece ended at the top of the head, and then to unzip it, you had to come down, and then it would detach. So then when you're putting it on, you're having to find your pieces, put them together, and then zip upwards, rather than just, on your head, zip down. So we learned the proper direction to put zippers on our heads, which we have done today. We also have this nice little flap here, which isn't always necessary, especially if you're wearing a balaclava in the head or if you have short hair. Although I still recommend wearing a balaclava if you have a zipper either way, whether or not your hair is long or short, because zippers are assholes. But this is just to help protect you from getting your hair stuck in the zipper or feeling uncomfortable zipperiness, because even zipped up zippers will still try to eat your hair. They're assholes. So yeah, we got that going. That's all nice and hidden. Now we just gotta actually sew this damn thing into the head, which is easier said than done. He's free. Now, usually the first thing I like to do is to sew in the lining. I'm going to hide this excess chunk of zipper between the lining and the foam on the top of the head, because I think that's actually the best way to go about that. And then I'm going to start I'm going to try ladder stitching all the way around, to be honest. I don't think it's going to let me, even if I undo the zipper later, but we'll find out. There is not a lot of extra fur here for this. Hi, Forest. Can I help you? That is way off, sir. We'll fix that. That's okay. Come on. There we go. And then this is what I would consider a high tension area for fabric. So I am using the upholstery thread on this part of the lining. The rest of the lining I used regular all-purpose thread. Whereas I'm using my heavy duty for this section because this gets a lot more tension. The fur all gets upholstery though. With the exception of face fur, because face fur is glued down, so that doesn't need upholstery. Forrest has died. He is now taking a nap. Miss Rabbit has fainted. Like I said, this is one of the most tedious parts, is sewing the lining. Especially this part and the bottom of the lining, because we're already sewn into the fur. Normally, when I sew lining, the fur is not already attached, but because of the zipper, I have to do it with the fur already attached. Because otherwise we'd have ugly seams and shit, because there's no way you're getting that on the sewing machine later. Which means we had to do it before it was on the head. Now I'll have pretty seams and a pain in the butt of sewing to do, but that's okay. I wouldn't offer it if I didn't want to do it, if it wasn't a good idea. Although, now that I line my heads fully, I am considering charging more for zippers. Everything's everywhere, being a pain in my butt. There we go. Come on. Now you will notice, if you've seen the insides of my head earlier, that the face uses the dark red fabric versus the white fabric that the rest of the head is using. The reason for that is this suit is getting the light patterned fabric because it has light patterned fur for the most part, with the exception of like the hair, which even then I would still consider this hair fairly light. It's not like black or really, really dark brown. It's just a brown. The rest of the colors, especially the cream, are really light, and they make up a majority of the bodysuit. So he's generally getting white lining for the suit. That being said, I've found that in faces, it's not just the eyes that make it difficult to see. It can be the inside of the head itself that makes it difficult to see through eyeballs. And I have found that putting darker lining where you see makes it a lot easier to actually see out of the face. So even if a fursuit is getting the lighter fabric overall, all of my fursuit faces get the darker fabric for lining. and it just makes life a little easier for the fursuiter. This might not be true for everyone's suit, depending on the build and how close it is to your face, but seeing as my suits usually have room for glasses, this is generally the default anyway. But because of this, there's extra space and you're not just seeing the eyeballs. So it makes it a lot easier. Sometimes too, when light comes in through the eyes, it will reflect off the inside of the suit, and the lighter fabric reflects light more, which is not great. Whereas the darker fabric is not going to reflect as much bright light back into your eyes and will keep it easier to see. And I am running out of thread on my needle. But we are part way around the head at least, so yay! We might, well, yeah, we might actually get all of his head and neck fur sewn on before the end of stream, which would be good progress. And then I'd spend the rest of the day, aside from doing normal adulting things around the house, the rest of today would be spent sewing on more hair tufts. And then finishing up. I mean, that's probably going to take me the next couple of days. But then after that would be final details. Like, I believe he has removable eyelids that I still need to make. And then I believe, aside from that, he just needs his eyeliner, which is part of the removable eyelids. At least a little bit. We're going to tie this off. Oh, come on, come on, come on. Yeah. Yeah, so you can see we've got the lining sewn down to here, which is not super far. But then we'll come back and this will actually get tacked up in the corners here to help hold up the fabric since it's just glued on. This will help keep it from pulling off the glue. We'll probably also stitch it here with the fur, although I think because of how short the fur is, in this instance, the seam allowance I mean, this will on its own help hold that part up without the extra stitching. But it is helpful. So we'll do that. And then it'll get tacked here and here, and then it'll probably get tacked again down at the bottom corners of the cheeks as well. I mean, I want to say it'd be tacked on the mouth, but that's not really how the mouth works because the mouth is weird. Fur is weird. Lining is weird. Lining fur is weird. I can actually tuck this zipper. Ooh, that'll be much better. I'm going to tuck the zipper between the fur and the foam, not the lining and the foam. Because that will keep it from sitting on top of your head and being uncomfortable. And it just seems to want to go there much better anyway. It'll fit much nicer. Which is always a bonus. Good fit and comfort. That is a big thing for me, is I want my suits to be as functional and comfortable as possible to wear. I feel like a lot of suit makers don't necessarily care as much for that as they do for their style, which is perfectly fine. You know, like there just are some styles that you aren't going to you're not going to get comfort or like good vision or things like that from. Like, for example, a lot of the creepy styles of suits tend to have smaller eyes, but they have larger maws. So they might have amazing breathability, but vision is probably lacking. And I've noticed with a lot of suit makers, they try to make the heads look very animalistic, right? They go for the realistic muzzles and stuff like that, which I try to get the muzzle shapes. The issue is a lot of those muzzle shapes, first off, are huge. right? So they come out to here and they're big and whatnot. And when you're trying to get that to fit on a human head without getting in the way, the bigger you make it, if you drop them lower, then it hits your chest and you can't really move your head anywhere. But if you raise it higher, then it blocks vision because your muzzle's here, and then you can't see anything here. Whereas I go with a bit of smaller muzzles while trying to keep the original, animal shape and style. Trying. I wouldn't say I'm particularly good at capturing more realistic animal shapes. I have a very smooth face shape to my suits. They're not very curved, whereas a lot of suit makers have a lot more concave and convex areas to their suit, whereas mine are relatively more flat. And that's just the way my style is versus their styles, I really like those styles. They look super cute. But an additional problem with those is that a lot of times to get that muzzle shape, they widen the bridge of the nose. I try to keep my bridge down to 1 inch wide because I find that kind of gets rid of the blind spot directly in front, while still giving you really good vision. So then you have most of your vision aside from a tiny bit of peripheral. And that is a big thing for me personally. Is I don't mind being in suit and being a little toasty and muffled. I do mind being blind as a fucking bat, though. That is something I personally hate in suits. Just for myself, I know everybody's got their preferences and stuff like that. Which is why one of the first things I did was change my suits to be better vision-wise and fit glasses, because I don't want to walk around blind, I like being able to see in my suits. And people are like, oh, well, that's just par for the course. You're wearing a fursuit, you're going to be blind. It doesn't have to be. And like I said, for some styles, it does. You're not going to get that cutesy animalistic style without being a little bit blind, or getting the creepy style with the small eyes without being a little bit blind. Right, like that's a big thing for me, is I need to be able to wear my glasses. I really do. And like for some people, like especially those that have asthma and stuff, breathing is a big thing. So kimono suits, while they might have really good vision, do not have good breathability. Which is partly why I don't like kimono suits, because I also like breathing. I like to see and I like to breathe. I like to be comfortable while suiting. I would rather be able to suit for a really, really long time and not have the most amazing style in the world and be comfortable than wear the world's most beautiful suit for 5 minutes and have that be the longest I can do because I can't see or breathe inside my suit that well, But that's just me personally. Everybody has their own preferences and tastes, and people can handle things more than others, and so on and so forth. But yeah, glasses is a big thing for me. I really like to have room for my eyeballs, and I like to see in front of me. I don't really care as much for peripheral, but I do care for being able to see in front of me and as far below me as I can, especially with going to events like the Johnsons meet or Midland for the Comic-Con, because they have a lot of issues. Not a lot of issues. There's a lot of kids there, and kids are short as fuck. So I don't want to be sitting here in my dummy thick bodysuit and then knock over a 3-year-old, because I didn't know they were there. Like, I like to be as aware of my surroundings as I can be in suit, rather than just full blind all the time. And, like, I don't mind being around my house with my glasses off, but I have to wear my glasses to drive. Like, I'm pretty freaking blind. I can't read signage or anything like that with my eyes off. So, if I can't wear my glasses in suit, I'm not particularly happy about it. See, that is a thing, though. I don't know how you manage to fog up your glasses. Granted, Luna's an older suit. I don't know if you're talking about Luna or Patch. But even so, even Patch 2.0 has the older style of muzzle that Patch 1.0 had, because that was my favorite part of Patch 1.0 suit, was his muzzle shape. I think if I were to do a 3.0 with Patch, I would not do that muzzle shape again. But I would do my current muzzle shape. But I still like Patch 2.0 quite a bit. Patch 2.0 just always looks shocked. That's just his facial expressions. Which, I mean... Yeah, that tracks. He's always surprised by something, you know? But... it's really funny, because I'll see pictures that people took of me, like, I'll go on Fur Track, and I'll see pictures of me from, like, Midland or something, and it's someone off in the crowd, and they're like, oh, the yellow furry, and I'm just standing there. And it's not because I'm actually surprised by something, it's because, like, I'm adjusting my head or something, just holding my head up a little bit, trying to adjust things, or breathe a little bit better out of the mouth, because I find if I can shove my face in there, I can... especially when I'm really hot already. Most of the time it's not an issue, but that does help. I had to install a fan in my worm's head because I had the same issue with the lack of a mouth. Yeah, I know that's a big thing with the worms, is the breathability. I always forget you have a worm suit, and I could never. Like, those suits are adorable, but I could never, just because I like breathing. I like breathing, and I like seeing. I want to be comfortable when I'm running around in suit. I don't want to have things digging into me, or... Bingus is dreaming. Just a little bit. She's over here growling in her sleep. But I don't want to have things digging into me or be super freaking hot just because there's so many layers. You know, like, I prefer comfort in my suits. While also still having a really nice and cute fursuit. Like, I think both are achievable to some extent. There are, like I said, some things are give and take. Like, if you're going to have a bird suit, you're just not going to have good vision because that beak has to go somewhere, especially if you're trying for a more realistic style head shape where the beak is, in fact, between the eyeballs. Or if you're trying to go for something that has small eyes and big maw or things like that, there are some things. Like, you're going to have a heavier head if there's more things on it. If you don't want a heavy fursuit head, you probably shouldn't have ears that are the size of me. That's just the way it goes. Some designs aren't practical for suits. Some suits aren't practical for wearing. It's just the way it goes. But I prefer practical, comfortable suits. Which is why at some point I do want to get a plantigrade suit. Not for Patch, but just in general. I want to get a plantigrade bodysuit for a character. Just because that would be nice to have as a summer fursuit or a warmer season fursuit, because even though Patch is a 3/4 suit, he is hot. It is so warm wearing him, just because of all the padded legs. It's great in the winter, you know, like, it's comfy, it's cozy. The torso's cold because he's a 3/4 suit. He really is just a fall suit, a fall and a spring suit, because I can't wear him in the summer, it's too hot. I can't wear him in the winter without a bazillion layers, it's too cold. But in the fall and the spring, perfect. Never hot, never cold, always comfy. So I would at some point like to do plantigrade suit. I thought about doing that for the upcoming project, but I am a sucker for digi-suits, you know, like, that is another thing. I really, really like digi-legs. Some people don't, some people do, some people don't care either way, and it's really just a comfort thing. I will suffer with digi-legs just to have digi-legs. I don't care about having the extra work to suit up. I don't care that it makes me hotter. I really like the digi-leg shape on my suits, and that is something I am willing to give up comfort for. I'm not willing to give up practicality. Well, I mean, practicality for, you know. I'm not willing to give up my vision or my breathing, but I am willing to give up my non-sweaty legs. Odds are I'm going to end up sweaty anyway, so I really like the digi-padding. Which is why even for the future project, I am still doing digi for it. Because I like the shape, and I think it'll look really good on the character. I think most characters would look good in digi. It is what I like. That being said, I do eventually want a plantigrade bodysuit. And if it weren't for the fact that I think it would look weird on Patch, I would give Patch a plantigrade bodysuit for summer events and stuff. But I really like his digi-suit, so I won't. I cannot. I think Patch would look weird in a planty suit, personally. At least his current version. I think if I made a version of him that was made to be planty, it wouldn't be so bad. But I think with how big his muzzle is, and his paws and all that, it would look very silly with a planty suit. And if I made a planty bodysuit, I'd definitely have to give him different feet paws, because his feet paws are huge as it is. They do not fit me. That's why we now have a smaller feet paw pattern for people with smaller feet. Or for people in planty suits. It goes both ways. It's the pattern that I prefer to use for plantigrade suits is also the pattern I would use for someone that has particularly small feet. Like myself, I wear a women's 6.5 on a good day. Some brands I wear a women's 5. It just depends. So I would use my plantigrade pattern more likely than my digi pattern for my feet paws on my own suits because I'm a small person. So the smaller feet would fit better. That being said, I did not originally have that pattern, so Patch has my big boy digi feets and also the older version of them to go with his suit. And I feel like they look kind of like clown feet on him. They're a little big. And they're hard for me to walk in because I have teeny tiny feet. And you can only adjust so much in adjustable padding. Which is lesson learned. But that being said, if someone is getting a plantigrade suit and their feet are too big for the plantigrade feet paws, they get the scaled up digi paws. And that's fine, because that's, odds are the rest of them is also big enough for that to not look out of place. Because I think the plantigrade goes up to like a size 13 or something like that, whereas the digi goes up to like a size 15. I'm not entirely sure. I don't remember. It's been a while. It's been a hot minute since I've actually made a set of feet paws between them. Which this guy is getting a digi suit with built-in shoes. So he is going to get the digi feets because he has big enough feet for it. For reference, when I put shoes inside of... First off, Patch was made with socks. He was made with the sock paw pattern. The adjustable style sock paw. And even fully stuffed, it was too loose on my feet. So, I kid you not, I just slid a pair of my shoes into the sock. The sock was big enough that I could fit a full pair of my shoes in there and still have wiggle room. They fit much nicer now that there is a pair of shoes in there. But that just shows how much bigger those feet paws could go than my feet are, because I have itty-bitty steppers. Whereas most of the time, you're not going to be able to do that with most people's shoes. They would be too wide or too long to fit inside the sock of the sock style pattern. If I were to, I do want to remake Patch's feet, because first off, I have updated the toe styles since I made his feet by a decent bit. They show up a lot better now, whereas his old feet paws did not really look like toes. Wasn't really toe shaped. Speaking of, I need to 3D print. I'm so mad because I made a 3D model and then I fucked it up. And then I printed it and the print failed, and now I can't print it again because it's gone. The 3D model's gone. Which sucks. I might be able to, but it's gonna take some effort. I'd have to reprint the entire thing and not just the piece that it messed up on, which makes me sad. But I can show you guys actually. If you remember, the 3D printer was running the other day during stream. During the short stream. And it was 3D printing these. This is the new 4-toe pattern that messed up. So we are missing our small toe, unfortunately. And this is the one piece that I need to reprint, which sucks. Sad day. But we did successfully get the more important one, which is the 5-toe pattern. Which is good, because we do need this for this suit, because he's got 5 toes. Granted, as you can see, it's only half of the foot. It'll be reflected. But this is how we'll get the new feet paw pattern for that. And I might have to modify it a little bit to keep this shape, because there's nothing actually holding it to this shape and not widening out. But this should work nicely, and it should look really cute with the style that I usually do. But I do want to redo my 4-toe ones to be a bit better, because my old version is not great. It's okay. And I'm at the point where I've done so much modification to it that I'm pretty much out of modifications I could do to the pattern as it exists without completely revamping the pattern. So we're gonna at least try to revamp the toes. The rest of the pattern I think works fine, it's just the toes that need to be redone. So that's how that's going. Feet paws are a pain in my butt. And at some point I do actually need to do a set of bird feets, which I will have to make a model for, or get a model for, and make a pattern from that model. Because I'm not good at 3D modeling. These models I did make myself, but they're fairly simple. They're just a bunch of circles squished together and then cut into chunks. Fairly easy to do. But otherwise I am not good at modeling in general. So, since bird feet are so shape, I'm probably going to try and find a toony bird that I like the feet of. Find a model like that and cut off its legs. Modify its feet if I need to, adjust them. Probably print off a small scale model. Pattern that, scale up patterns until I think it'll fit a shoe decently. And then possibly go from there with some more modifying. Because we don't want giant feet either, you know, we don't want massive bird feet. We don't want a foot that's this big, although proportionally that might be accurate. I want to try to keep it similar to my normal feet paw size. So that also means I am probably going to have to modify the actual shape of the foot, which will take some work to do. But we'll find out. You know, we'll figure it out. We'll scan the pieces, we'll scale them up on the projector and see how that looks, and if that doesn't look good, we'll modify the model, and yada yada, and go from there. Until eventually we have a set of feet paws. Little birdie feets. And that's going to take quite a bit of work because I've never made bird feet before. So I'll have to make the entire model, the entire pattern, versus this one. I've never made I've never done a 5-toed suit before. I've done 5-fingered, I've never done 5 toes. So I do have to actually make the 5-toe pattern, but the rest of my pattern that I normally use should still work. It's just the toes that need to be changed. So that's easy enough. You know, I'm not rebuilding everything completely from scratch, just the feet. Just the toe bits. My original feet paw pattern that I use, I actually used to carve my feet off of foam bases. I no longer do that for a couple different reasons. First off, they're really stiff. They're okay, but they are particularly stiff compared to the polyfill versions. They're hard to clean because you can't really just toss those in the washer. They're too bulky for most washers, particularly the top load ones with the agitators in the middle. They're too bulky for. It might be fine on a front load or a washer that doesn't have an agitator in the center. I know a lot of modern ones don't, but for those like me who have an older style, it doesn't fit in those. But also, the cuffs were often an issue as far as like fitting properly and stuff like that. Lining them was extremely difficult. So the new solution was to take a foot paw that I liked, one of the foam-based ones that I liked, and save the pattern from it. And then I used that as a plush version, and I made a sock pattern to go with it that would fit it. And that took a lot of tweaking over the last couple of years, and now we end up with what I use for my feet paws. I did not want to have to build an entire set of foam feet just for this guy to end up with foam feet. You know, I don't like the foam feet. They don't, for all the reasons I listed, they don't fit well, they're not particularly comfortable, they're hard to pack and store and clean, yada yada, so on and so forth, especially with the built-in shoes. I want something that's easy to clean. That is another big thing for me. Is like, I don't mind if my suit doesn't look a certain way if it means it makes maintenance easier. You know, that's the big thing. I see a lot of people do airbrushing on fursuits, and I think what a lot of people don't realize with the airbrushing is that it does come off when you wash it. Like, you're not allowed to wash an airbrush suit. You can spot clean it, but most of the time you can't actually thoroughly wash the areas that are airbrushed without having to redo the airbrushing at some point, because it will come off. Kind of like a tie-dye. Tie-dye is known to fade over time, as is the airbrushing on suits. I think even worse than tie-dye is. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not an expert on airbrushing, but I do know that this is a common issue for airbrush suits. And the last thing I want is to have a commissioner message me a year later saying, hey, all of that really nice airbrushing that you spent hours and hours doing is gone. Can you redo it for me? And then have to have them send me their suit, have me spend time redoing it all, and then mailing it back, and then they're out of suit for a week. They have to pay me all over again to airbrush it, and their suit just won't look the same. Like, there's a lot of suits that used to be airbrushed that just don't look the same anymore. Which sucks, because the airbrushing is so pretty. It is beautiful. And I would love to offer it. But it's not practical. It just isn't, which is why I probably never will offer airbrushing until there is a much more permanent way to put that on suits and get those gradients that airbrushing offers. I will not be doing airbrushing. That being said, I am looking into a way to sew in gradients rather than airbrush them, so they'd be permanent and they would never leave. They would be very difficult to achieve, though. So we'll see. I have to do some small-scale tests. It also depends on, like, what colors you're doing, you know? Because, like, I don't think going from a white and black is going to be as easy as going from a dark green to a lighter green gradient. So I do think there are some limitations to it. I also just don't have the time to sit here and do tests like that right now. If I was smart, I would have done it last week when I did have some time, while I was waiting for things to happen. Because sometimes things are a waiting game, unfortunately. Yeah. Sorry, I'm also trying to do this at the same time. I want to make sure that the fur is centered on the head, which as of right now, the lining is not centered. Which is okay. The lining doesn't have to be perfect and amazing as much as I'd like it to be perfect and amazing. It's a part that you never really see, especially these seams right here, because they're kind of tucked away into the edges of the suit. So I don't mind if we have some puckering. Someday I'll get good enough at lining that that won't be an issue anymore, but as of right now, I'm not that good. It took me a surprisingly long time to figure out how to line my fursuit heads at all. In fact, I think the first ever lined fursuit head I did was the Poodle pre-made that I still have, mostly because I haven't had anywhere to sell it aside from my website, and my website does not get a lot of traction. Plus, it's a fairly simple design. You know, there's nothing particularly interesting about it or unique aside from the tool. But I believe, if I remember correctly, that is the first one to ever get lined. It is also the last suit. No, I might be wrong. I don't know, but that one's head is long. I know for a fact the Poodle is the first one to get sublimated eye blanks, which is why they're so muted and not as brightly colored as I originally wanted them to be. It might have been the Cocktail that was the first one to get fully lined. One of those pre-mades. One of them. I don't remember which. It's been long enough that I don't remember. But at the same time, that was last summer. That was like a year ago. And I've been making suits for a few years. It's surprising how long it took me to actually figure out to line heads. Like, I tried multiple times and it just did not work. It was too small, it was too snug, it couldn't actually be put onto the base. it was awful. And then finally, one day, it just started working. And I don't know what I did differently, but it works. So now I can fully line my fursuit heads. Yay! So I do. It also means that my suits take a few days longer to complete at least, just because there is a lot of hand sewing involved with the headlining. As you can see here, this entire stream is just me sewing the lining, and it's been over an hour. Which this guy, his bodysuit, I believe, if I remember, this is the commission, right? Should be. Is going to have full bodysuit lining. So he will also have all of this in his bodysuit, all the way through and through. I'm actually not sure I have enough of the white cotton for it, surprisingly. I should. Keyword should. But I don't know that I do. So we'll find out. When we get there. We'll find out when we get there. But yeah, it's definitely been, there's been a lot of learning over the years, because like within the first 4 suits I've done, I figured out how to line hand paws. Lining hand paws was easy. Lining feet paws was easy. Lining heads, I don't know why that part wasn't easy. That part was awful. It was a pain in my butt, like nobody's business. And I don't know why. Don't ask me. I'll never know the answer. But what matters is that it works now. It's lined. Now I have to figure out how to stitch this to the mouth. Because the mouth is, I did the mouth weird again. Because I'm a weirdo. And I do things in weird ways. Like actually, I might just do it like this. Come on. The hard part is keeping the fur out of the way so I can see. Mouths are always a weird spot for me. Just because of how I do them. Good morning, Bingle. Did you have a nice nap? Did you have a nice nap? She's like, I don't know. Is that the worst nap of your life? Do you have a nightmare? She looks like she had one of those naps where, like, you lay down after school. You know, like, you just get home from school, you're fucking tired. You take a nap, you wake up, and suddenly it's 8 p.m. Dinner's done. Everybody ate without you. You feel all sweaty and shit. You know, those naps. But that's the most well-rested you've been in years. Yeah? Is it? Did you have a good nap? Was that the nappiest nap of your life? She is over here smiling and wagging now. Yeah. Are you hot, babe? Are you sweaty? Oh, big stretch from the baby mans. Oh, big stretch. Hi. Can I help you? Oh, big stretch. Oh. I know, I mentioned you guys, and now I'm never going to be left alone ever again. Oh, Bingle, are you stiff? Are you stiff from your chair? Bingus is stiff. Grandma's all stiff. The poor baby. Poor baby grandma. Oh, big stretch, baby man. Big stretch. Okay, everybody needs to lay down, please. Yeah. You don't have to do it in your chair. You just gotta go lay down. My son's just gonna stare at me. He's just so creepy sometimes. It's like, Mother, pay attention. He's planning my end. He's planning it. He's thinking about how he can bring about my demise because I'm not paying enough attention to him. He's like a cat, you know? He just judges you. Like, he's just there sometimes. At least I don't have a toilet brush for a tail. I know, that was mean. I'm the one that gave him the toilet brush. I've tried trimming it. It just looks so silly. I need to trim it some more now his hair has grown out some. I need some pliers, good lord. Pliers. This chair is honestly one of my favorite things that I've put in the office. Just because drawers. Like, it rolls, which is okay. I don't care that it rolls. It's a bonus. But, like, drawers. You want to know what's under my ass? You want to know what's under my butt cheeks? Other than a lot of sweat, probably? Tape. There's tape in there. And some glitter glue? No, it's not glitter glue. It's regular glue. But I'm still not really sure why I have it. Listen, I'm mean to him. It's a good thing he doesn't know English. Say, huh, it's a good thing you don't know English. It's a good thing you're a baby and you barely know words yet. Yeah. Hi, hello. Oh, da baby. Oh, da baby. Hold on, the baby requires... I'm being pushed by the baby. The baby requires cuddles and lovin's. Yes, he does. Get your face out of my crotch, please. Thank you. Yeah, that's your ears. You got big ass ears, baby man. You need a brushing. Oh, I'm getting pushed some more. Goodbye, guys. I shall leave, I suppose, because my son is pushing me away. Hello. Hello, nosy pants. Can I help you? Oh, big yawn. Can you go away now, please? God damn it. This is why I never get anything done. I get pushed around by my son. Goodbye. Goodbye forever. Hi, hello. Okay, great. I am the return. Haha. Yeah, hi. Yeah. Alright, everybody go lay down. There's too much dog in here. Too much dog. Yeah, skedaddle. You're gonna get stabbed and you're not gonna like it. Yeah. You gotta practice safety. OSHA would not be happy with this. They would not. You're not wearing any PPE. Get out of here. Skedaddle. YouTubing is skedaddle. Go on. Go lay on the couch or something. It's colder out there. I know it. Thank you. Good dogs. Skedaddle. Go. Go bug your dad or something. Yeah, go bug him. Thank you. No, out. just a revolving door of dogs now. Okay, they've all finally settled out in the kitchen or something. Which is good, because they were all panting hot and shit anyway. They need to cool off. But they're idiots who will stay in here until the day they die if it means being close to me. Because they have boundary issues and attachment issues. They're needy babies, forced to staring at me from the doorway. If I pretend he's not there, he might go away. But I don't think it's going to work, because this is Forrest we're talking about. And he never listens or does what I want him to. Now he's just sitting there staring at me. Oh. What will I ever do? What am I gonna do with you, son of a bitch? That hurt a lot of bit for not even being that deep. Got me right underneath my nail. I got myself real good the one day. I stabbed myself underneath my thumbnail. You can still see the scab under the thumbnail that it caused. It's awful. Here's a lesson for you guys. Never get stabbed. Don't do it. That's my lesson of the day. Don't get stabbed. That's all I got. That's all of the wisdom I have to impart on you. I'm not good at the wisdoms. I'm not good at much of anything, to be honest. Like, I'm pretty okay at existing. It's about all I have going for me at this point, is I can exist sometimes. Ow, why does that hurt so oh, I did stab myself a lot. Oh. The world's tiniest drop of blood. Like, it's so tiny it doesn't even want to come out of me tiny. Well, it's a good thing I'm working with red fat. I'm teasing. It's not going to get on anything. Otherwise, I would get a band-aid. Sometimes I wonder how I'm still alive. I'm not really sure how I manage it some days, you know? Like, I'm just really bad at existing. The amount of times I have been burnt and stabbed and tripped and felled and died is a significant number. Like, I don't know if I have regaled the people of Twitch my story of how I got the burn scars on my forearms that are now mostly faded. Where did that one come from? Probably the dogs. I have two very prominent scars, one on my wrist and one on my forearm. This one's actually also almost mostly faded. I got that one a few years ago. But these are the two raised scars that I have. I do, however, have a burn scar that is very visible in some lighting, but not a lot of lightings, right here. In fact, actually, I can't feel anything in one little tiny spot right here. It's numb. It's very weird. I have an identical scar on this side that I actually can't really see anymore, but it's right about here. It's very, very faded in comparison to the other one, because somehow this arm didn't get burnt as bad as this one. This one I can still see even in this lighting, but if I go outside, it's like a purpley, very visible spot with a white center. The story of those scars starts with the fact that, first off, this was like 2019, 2020-ish. I don't really remember. I want to say 2020. Important to note, I worked at a pizza place. Also important to note, the pizza place does not condone this, and neither do I. Cool? Great. You can't sue me no more. You're not allowed. This is not a good idea. Do not do this. My dumbass worked at a pizza place. I was on the ovens. It was a boring day. And, of course, I have a coworker come by trying to put pizza in the oven. Fact number whatever. I am short as shit. I am 5 feet tall, which means our pizza oven was shoulder level. The bottom of the pizza oven is shoulder level with me. It's got a door about this tall, yay wide, you know, probably about 6 feet wide. Could fit 10 large pizzas in there at a time. Shoulder level. So I am eye level with the handle on this big ass heavy door that is hot as shit. The entire thing is hot. This is not like your home oven with the metal on the outside. It's a kind of warm. No. This shit's hot. It's a metal handle, and I'm burning my hands just holding the fucking handle. It's dumb. It's also a pizza oven at a restaurant. It's not at 350. It's not at 450. This thing's at like 600 degrees for fun. It cooks pizzas in 10 minutes. I don't know what to tell you guys. But besides the point. So my coworker comes by, and they're ready to put something in the oven. And my dumbass, with my back to the oven, goes, I'm not going to turn around and open the door. I'm just going to squat. This door opens like so. It folds down. So when I dropped into a squat, that door folded down. And I watched and listened as my forearms sizzled and the door went through it like melted butter. Like it was like putting a hot knife into a stick of butter. I kid you not. I watched it sink into my arm and saw my skin bubbling. Horrifying to see, but I wasn't going to let go of the door because my coworker was standing right there and I didn't want to burn them too. And if I dropped and if I let go of the door, it was just going to fall further onto my arm. It wasn't going to spring back up. It was going to fall further and be worse. So I stood there for a second, figuring out my solutions. So my next solution was, while still holding said door, drop to my ass. And then let go, which worked. The door stopped touching me. This one hurt like hell. It blistered really bad. It was awful, painful for the next 2 weeks. Horrible. This one turned white. And I didn't feel a thing. It blistered just as bad, if not worse. Like, I had a blister the size of, like, a baseball on this arm for a couple weeks. I ended up popping it on accident on this desk. Not this one, but the one I previously had that's just like this one on the edge here. And then I had to, you know, make sure it didn't get infected. I got burned a lot, and I've accidentally popped a lot of blisters. It's a normal Tuesday for me. So it was awful, and they're like, you should go to urgent care and get workman's comp. And I'm like, workman's comp for being a dumbass? No, that's my own fault. I'm not doing that. I have integrity. And plus, I couldn't afford the urgent care trip in the first place. I didn't make that much money at the pizza place. Are you kidding me? So I suffered. But the reason it didn't hurt is because it killed the nerve there. I didn't feel anything because there was nothing to do the feeling anymore. That's how bad it burnt that arm. The other one, somehow, did not get burnt as bad. I'm not really sure how. Because like I said, they're pretty much identical, the scars. But this one is also healing a lot faster and is almost gone. This one is still pretty visible in certain lighting. It's not noticeable enough that most people see it because they're not looking for it. But if you're looking for it, you could still see the little kind of triangle-y shape and the little white line in the middle from where it got me. So yeah, it blistered, it hurt. The most this one did was after like a week and it was healing up, it was scabbing over, it got itchy. It got itchy just around the outer edges. I'm sitting here like itching next to where it is because I obviously don't want to fuck with it, but it's so itchy. So I'm just going, it itches, you know? But it never hurt. Not once did this burn hurt. This one hurt like hell. This one did not hurt once. So that's an interesting thing, I guess. But like the center of it never hurt, it never itched. Just the outer edges where there was still feeling. And that's the story of how I got burnt by a pizza oven. I also had, for a while, what I called my kidney beans. I'm actually not sure which arm it was on. Because it's no longer there. I want to say it was this one, though. because I'm right-handed. But I had what I called my kidney beans, which were 3 little burn scars that have since faded because they were like 2nd degree at worst. They did blister a little bit, and that was it. From dropping pickles, deep-fried pickles, into the fryer. Now, if you know how fryers work, you put something wet in a fryer, it splatters. We were putting pickles, which are extremely wet, coated in batter, into the fryer by hand. And I wasn't wearing gloves for this in particular, because all of our gloves were too big for me, and I didn't want to deep fry the plastic. So I washed my hands beforehand, still being clean about shit, sanitary. Fucking any germs around there are gonna get cooked to all hell anyway, but still, wash your hands first. Nice and cleany weeny. And then I'm going pickle by pickle, swishy swishy drop, because if you don't swishy swishy, it just sinks to the bottom and then sticks to the bottom of the fryer. It's awful. All that batter just adheres. So you swishy, so it cooks a little bit first, and then you let it in there so it can finish cooking and floating. But as I was doing that, some of the pickles I had already dropped popped and splattered the underside of my arm. And I was like, well, shit. Guess I'll keep dropping pickles. And I did, and I survived. I've also burnt my fingers many a time, both at the Pete's place and doing this job with the hot glue gun. I've gotten blisters on my knuckles and stuff. I did get a blister on my palm once, which I was told was something that can't happen, but it sure as fuck did. That wasn't too bad, though. I've been burnt by grease a lot from fryers. I've been burnt by pizza trays, you know, the pizza racks, I say racks, what are they called? The pizza screens. They put the dough on, and then they put it in the oven, and then they take it out, and it's a metal, like, wire screen that they sit the pizzas on. Yeah, that shit. I've been burnt by those many a times, just touching me all over the place. Hot glue. I remember when I first started using high temp hot glue, it ran through an ear. Like, I was gluing on this side of an ear, and it ran through the back, and then dripped onto my pants, and I went, ah, my pants! Ah, my hand! And then I got a blister all on the side of my fingers from it. So that was not fun. But, you know. Hazards of the career, I suppose. It is what it is. I lived to tell the tale, didn't I? So yeah, I'm a little accident prone in a lot of stupid ways. The stupidest story was the pizza oven one, I will say. That's probably the stupidest thing I've ever done. The actual scars that have stuck around have much simpler stories. Like this one was from when I was about 13, 14-ish. I lived in Alabama at the time. We had a above ground pool in the backyard, and we invited one of my friends over to go swimming, whatever. My friend does a backflip really close to me. Their toenail, this is really gross, their toenail caught my wrist, sliced it open, so I start bleeding. Me, being 13, not giving a shit, and having grown up with the lick it, you'll live, you don't need a band-aid, I licked it and went back to swimming in our chlorine pool, which I assume combination of the bacteria from the toenail, my spit, and then the chlorine from the pool is what caused this to scar over. And that's been there since. This one is actually Bingus's fault, because she was way too excited one day when we were training, and I told her to up, and rather than politely getting up, she went like that, and sliced her claws down, and it just so happened to scar. Again, I assume from toenail germs. So don't get toenails into your skin. You'll scar over. But those are my most prominent actual scars on me. Whereas my burn scars are a lot less visible, and a lot of them have faded. And I imagine that within the next few years, there'll be nothing but a memory, and they'll actually be fully gone. Dude. Nuh-uh. He's over here licking himself like crazy. It's yuckies. He acts like he didn't just have a bath the other day. Things are happening. Hydrate. Whoa. Hold on, let me tie this knot, and I'll do my hydrating. Hold on. I don't have water, like always, but you'll be happy to know it's not Coke today. It is, in fact, Jocko Malk. which is just a protein chocolate milkshake. I have the coffee flavor. It tastes like most protein shakes. It's okay at best. Personally, I don't mind these ones. I find that if you put like a spoonful of sugar into it, it just instantly tastes like chocolate milk. And it's great. On its own though, it's eh. No for you. You have to go buy your own. I didn't even get you any in the grocery run. But yeah, so those are the stupid stories of my scars. And we finally have the entirety of our lining, so... now I just gotta sew the head fur to the face fur. The head and neck fur, I should say. Which is easier said than done with this frickin' zipper. Shoop. There we go. Come on. Oh, there we go. And now I just have to... Actually, I'm gonna do this. Yay. Womp womp. There we go. It's nice and snuggles. And now the zipper is going to be hidden up between the foam and the fur. Which I think is a really good place to stick that end of the zipper, actually. Oh, come on, come on. There we go. The hard part is keeping it tight enough that it actually stays stitched for the first few stitches. Stays in place. There we go. I want to say I don't have too many interesting stories. But I've met me, and I'd argue that I do have interesting stories, I just don't remember 90% of them. I don't remember them until they're relevant, is what I should say. Because I've done a lot of things in my life. I have. Despite not being that old. I've had a lot of weird opportunities. Like, I did work at the pizza place, like I said. I also worked at McDonald's. I worked at a yarn shop in a tourist city. I worked at Joann's. I do this. I went to college and got 2 degrees. And that's just in between the ages of 18 and 22. I lived in Europe for a few years. I actually lived in Germany. The first time we were over there, we lived in Frankfurt. The second time we lived in Wiesbaden. Very nice. I would love to go back to Germany. Very pretty out there. Nice weather, usually. I like the food. Food's so good. It's nice, too, because you can actually walk everywhere, and if you can't walk there, there's public transportation to literally everywhere. You good, bud? No. Don't even try that. I grew up in New York. I'm actually from New York. Not the city, the state. I lived up in the mountains. Upstate. Way upstate, actually. We were closer to Canada than we were to New York City. Never been to New York City, I should say. That is a big thing. Everybody's like, oh, you've seen the Statue of Liberty? You've seen the Empire State Building? Were you there for the Twin Towers? No. First off, I was a baby when the Twin Towers happened. Second off, I've never been to New York. Meh. Just haven't. Never been to New York City. I just lived upstate. I have, however, been to most states on the East Coast. Just through them, mostly just passing through. But a lot of them I have stayed in for a day or two for travel. For example, I've been to the Carolinas because we did go to Carowinds. Very fun park. I rode Fury 325, which is a very fun coaster. I find it very interesting that they market it as the world's tallest hypercoaster, which just means any coaster. Well, no, sorry, not hypercoaster, giga coaster. The world's tallest giga coaster, which is just any coaster that is over 300 feet, but under 400 feet. So apparently, there's no coasters between 325, but there's plenty of coasters that are over 400. Because there is, for example, the King Dakar and Top Thrill Dragster, which they did just take down the King Dakar, I believe. But that's besides the point. I lived in Alabama for multiple years. I lived there for, I believe, 6 years. About 5-6 years. And then I've been in Michigan since, which would now be about just under 10 years living in Michigan, I think, actually. God, it's been so long. It's like 8 years. Numbers are hard. I'm not good with dates or time periods. I just remember shit by where was I living at the time, you know? Like, oh, this is when I was living in New York, and oh, this is when I was living in Alabama, or whatever. I've done a lot of weird shit in my time. And the most recent one being a fursuit maker. You know, like... Yeah, we get it, Luna, you're old. You're so old, you're a grandmother. But, like, I have a lot of experience with a lot of different odd things that don't necessarily make sense. But I couldn't sit here and tell you a particular story off the top of my head that I remember, like... I could tell you some vague memories I have of when I was in Germany, but that was when I was a small child for the most part. Like, I remember getting this Bumblebee ice cream, which was just an ice cream. It was a scoop of ice cream with waffle cones in it. And when I say waffle cones, I do not mean cones. I mean, like, waffle sheets, waffle circles. They're the same kind of crunchy, hard waffle as a waffle cone, but they're circles like this big. And they'd stick them in it to make the little bee wings. And then he had M&Ms for eyeballs. Like, that's a very distinct memory I have. I also remember being at the Swiss Alps, apparently it was. I was a child, so I didn't know that's what that was, or, you know, how cool and awesome that was. I just remember being on this scary, tall, snowy hill while my father and one of his buddies made a giant-ass snowman that was probably only, like, 6 feet tall. But to me, it was huge. Yeah, it was huge. Gimongous. Oh, big stretch. Yeah. Bingus, actually, is from Alabama. We got her from a state shelter in Alabama when she was a puppy. And she has also been to Germany and lived there for a little bit. She lived in Alabama and Germany and here. We picked her... She also lived in Mississippi for a little bit with my family before we moved her here. I don't... Did you get the chance to live in New York? Or was that before? Yeah, that would have been first. They went to New York and then they went to Mississippi. So she's also lived in New York for a little bit too. So Bingus is almost as well traveled as I am, surprisingly. In fact, she's pretty freaking close for being a dog. For example, she has also gone to a FurCon. We went to MFF in 2023 together when she was still working. That was her first and only FurCon that she ever went to. It was a lot for her, but she did really well, especially all things considered. That was her first really big, really loud furry event. And that was also my first time in Chicago. I had never been to Chicago before that. I've never really been west of Chicago. I've been through Kentucky. I've spent nights in hotels in Kentucky a couple times during my travels. I've been down most of the states on the East Coast. I've been in Michigan for years, like I've said, but I've also traveled here to visit family for years as a kid. Most of my extended family is here. Not all of it, but most of it. Apparently, I also have extended family in Alabama, Georgia, which I did not know about. I'm not even sure they know I exist, but, you know, it is what it is. I don't know most of my extended family. But growing up, I went to a lot of large public schools. I never went to a private school. Always public. Most of the schools I went to had graduating classes of like 1,000 or so. The school I ended up finishing at only had a graduating class of like 80, which was insane to me because the kids would freak out if there was more than 15 students in a class, and I'm like, I'm used to there being a dead minimum of 30, and you were pretty much guaranteed 32 or 34 students per class, which sucked because they only put 30 desks in each class, which meant there usually weren't enough desks for the amount of students they were putting in these classrooms. And then it was kind of the same deal with college. I went to a local community college, and they only had maybe 30, 40 students per class, depending on the class. Some of the more niche classes only had 30 students, whereas some of the bigger, like, general gen eds, like English or public speaking, might have closer to 40, which wasn't particularly big to me. You know, that's a pretty average class size. I did like going to college. It was fun enough. It was expensive, but it was fun enough, you know. Can't complain, can't complain. And then one day while I was in college and during COVID, because mind you, I happened to be one of the few people who never really went into lockdown, because at the time I was doing full-time at college, which they did end up going online for a little bit, and then requiring masks all the time indoors on campus the next semester. But also I was working 2 jobs. I was working full-time and part-time jobs. And I happened to be working at restaurants, and for some reason people decided that fast food was essential, but the people that worked there were not. So I was required to come into work and got no benefits for working during COVID, which sucked. The closest I got to a benefit for working during COVID was I was allowed to take 2 weeks off for being sick if I got sick and not get fired. That was the one benefit I got for the whole 2 years during COVID when everything was locked down. Aside from that, I didn't do much, you know. I was at home one day watching YouTube, and I saw a tutorial on how to make a set of feet paws. And I was like, that's interesting, that's pretty cool. And that really was my introduction to furry, was Mugiwara's tutorial. I didn't consider myself a furry before that. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't even know the jokes or the rumors. I didn't know furry existed. But I saw them making the set of feet paws. I was like, that's pretty cool. I couldn't do that. I could do that. I can't do that. And so I decided, why not find out? And I tried. I made a set of feet paws, and they were god awful, but I did it. So then I made a mini partial, and that was Leo. Leo, the big cat. He didn't have a specific species to him. He was black and hot pink and yellow, but I couldn't find those furs because I didn't really have the resources at the time. So he ended up being black and baby pink and yellow. And it wasn't even good fur. It was horrible quality fur. Awful, even. But yeah, so that was my introduction to doing furry, and then I was like, I love this. I want to do more. So I made another suit, and then I made another suit. I think actually my first head was Leo. My second was Daisy, I believe. She was ugly as shit. And then I made Patch. Realized I couldn't keep all of these suits I was making, and started selling the ones that I wasn't dead set on keeping for like pennies on the dollar. I was just making them to make them, you know. So I started selling them for like $100 for mini partials. And I sold Daisy, and then I made Patch and was like, I can't sell Patch. I have to keep this one. Somewhere along the way, I made Alfie, turned him into a full suit, turned Patch into a full suit. I kept them for a while. I still have Alfie. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with him because I don't really connect with him anymore. He's also not good quality in the slightest. And then it just kind of grew from there. I started taking my first commissions just one day, you know, like I wasn't even really planning on it. And then Nave was recommended to me, and he was like, yeah, I'll buy a head from you. And he was my first commission. And then I did Luna's suit, and I did more pre-mades, and I did more commissions, and now we're here, and this is what I do for a living, which is a really freaking weird thing to say. Because it wasn't intentional in the slightest. I have fur all over me. I never tried to become a fursuit maker. It's not something that I was like, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to put in all this hard work to do it. It is something I do these days. You know, like I had spent years and years trying really hard to get into the fiber arts communities, actually. And I never did. I never successfully got into a crochet career, which is originally what I was trying to do. Not with this, but that's why I worked at the yarn shop and stuff like that. That's why I know so much about yarn and fiber and crochet. And I was trying really, because that's something that I really like to do. And I had never found something that just satisfied me the way crocheting did. I could sit weeks on it, years on end, you know, like I'll sit here and I'll get interested in something, do it until I'm burnt out, and then 2 weeks later I'm done with it, you know. I'm not interested anymore. But furry never did that. Furry stuck just as much as crocheting did, which was new. I didn't have anything else before that just really homed in for me the way that crochet did. So now it's what I do. Now it's my job. And I am lucky enough to do it as a full-time job, despite the fact that it pays shit. Sorry. So much talking, I'm starting to get scrunkly in my face. But I would consider myself to not be a big enough or popular enough maker to actually charge the prices that are required to make a living wage, much less minimum wage. Because at the end of the day, I really don't make that much for the amount of work I put in on these suits. But I would much rather work this than go back to retail. And that's saying something, because I did genuinely like most of my retail jobs. I did like the jobs I had. I enjoyed them to some extent. But none of them have I enjoyed as much as I enjoyed this. And that really is saying something. I am willing to take the pay cut to do a job that I absolutely love doing. And it's nice, you know? I get to make these characters and do these commissions. And it's fun. Do I get burnt out sometimes? Yeah. In fact, at the moment, I'd say I've been cooking for a long while. And I do need to take a break once when I'm done with my queue. But I do have the responsibility of getting through my queue first. But that's why there's the personal project coming up and such and all that stuff. But it is something I enjoy doing. It is a lot of fun. And I'm a little upset that we kind of ran out of time today as far as sewing in the head fur. We got most of the way around. On this side, you can see we got down to the lower chin here with the fur. We still have the rest of the other side to do. But then he'll have most of the fur sewn in on the back of his head. And we'll sew in his hair tufts. The real question is I don't know if I'm going to sew his... I think I'm going to sew his hair tufts before I sew the bottom of the lining, because then I can reach up in between and try to keep it from sewing through the lining on the back of the head as much. I think that'll be the easier way to do it. And then once when all of the hair tufts are in on the back, then I'll sew up the rest of the lining and finish it off all nice and neat. But for now, we will find a raid and we will skedaddle, I think, because it's been a day. It's been a day of me blabbing. Anybody that I know who's streaming? A bulldog plushie. Let's pop over here. I am not going to raid with you guys because I am very sweaty and I need a shower. But you guys can skedaddle on over. And I will see you tomorrow, hopefully. We'll see what game we're going to stream tomorrow. I'm not sure. We'll find out. Hopefully, next time the camera won't be doing all this shit. So, bye.